Oh, old Sea Dog 91. First of all, thank you for 10. That's very generous. Shout out to you and Disco Cobra.
Old Sea Dog 91 super
Thank you,
chatted
guys.
$9.99. Good news, Luke. A YT video came out saying that Starfield's lack of ground vehicles is a good thing because that would discourage exploration. So they're winking face.
I definitely want to hear his justification because that is such a polar opposite view of mine that I would love to be convinced and have like, I don't know if I'm weird. I just like having, like, I get a dopamine rush from the potential of having my mind totally shifted, like to go from A to Z. That gets me excited. Like, oh my God, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe something totally new is going to happen. I just find that exciting. And so when I hear somebody make a claim that is so opposite to what my stance is, I get excited because maybe they'll convince me. Maybe not though. Maybe it'll just be really, really stupid. I don't know. Yeah, again, no shade to this guy. I just want to hear if he can convince me of this thing that I think is like the polar opposite of my current stance. Okay, so this is a video from a small and upcoming creator. So I'm gonna link him. Go over there, show him some love. We've all, you know, okay, not all of us. I've been here with a smaller channel making videos on games I'm passionate about. So I really respect the hustle and no hate to anybody. Like I said, I just get excited when I hear that people have a take totally opposite to mine because it gets me excited. Are they going to convince me? Are they like, have I missed something so huge? You know? So show him love. Of course, you know, we're going to go through this, see if he can convince us one way or the other. Because I would love to have my mind changed. And I have a feeling where he's going with this whole discussion of vehicles in Starfield. I have a feeling I might actually partially agree with him. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Okay. I'm going to shut up before I spoil my own, my own take on this, but let's see what you got, Mr. Neo World. What you got, my friend? Okay.
I want to say that Starfield, I know I've talked a lot about the positives and how I think Starfield might be the game of the year or the best game ever made in general.
Okay, I mean, game of the year, subjective. Best game ever made, subjective. Okay, you're free to have your opinion, my friend. I might not agree with that stance currently, but maybe the game comes out and blows me away and I will agree with you. I don't know.
But there are some problems that I do want to address and do want to talk about because I've been looking at the comments. I've started, posting on TikTok a little more just to see how everybody feels on every platform about Starfield. I've joined a couple Discord servers. I just want to know, when it comes to Starfield, is the hype is big as mine? And honestly, it is in some areas, and in some areas people do have, arguments that might be some a little ignorant, but some make a lot of sense. And I do want to talk about that in today's video. So if you like my content,
and real quick, mad props for somebody that's hyped about a game being willing to discuss potential issues. That alone is very rare. Okay, I'm just going to be real with you. This is not common. A lot of fanboys don't like to, and I know fanboy has like a lot of derogatory connotations. Like it sounds like an insult. And I guess in some ways it is. I'm using it in this context as just somebody who's a big, huge fan of this thing and is very, very excited for it, to the point where maybe they lose a little bit of that critical evaluation. They start to get blinders going on because they're just so crazy excited for it, right? But as we've seen with other people we've looked at with their content, like Colt just like won't even entertain the idea that there are red flags surrounding games that he's excited for on Xbox. And I think that that's really, really unhealthy and really dangerous because that makes you very susceptible to being screwed over. So the fact that this guy's willing to look at potential concerns, mad props. That's super cool.
Like what I put out, ask you to please like, comment, and subscribe. We're very close to 1,000. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, you are. 962. Ooh, baby. We'll throw you a sub too.
for you guys. But anywho, let's go ahead and start. So as we all know, Starfield is going to be releasing at 30 FPS. Just because the game is releasing at 30 FPS should not take away people's experience with the game, right? But it is very understandable because it is 2023 and a lot of games honestly need to release at around 60 or at least have a fidelity and performance mode so everybody really feels comfortable with the game. And like, you know what, some days I just want to play with the fidelity out of this world and it looks really good with a sacrifice of performance. And then some people honestly just want to play for performance and say, I just want to enjoy the game. I don't really care much about the graphical side, but
yeah, it's about choice. Like if you can play a game with 30 and it looks amazing, has ray tracing, whatever, awesome, cool. Some people will prefer that. Other people would prefer the higher frame rates. My wife, for example, she doesn't, for somehow, she's like a phenomenon of science. She just doesn't notice frame rate. She'll play a game at 30 and then you'll switch it to performance and it'll start going at 60 and she won't notice a difference. It's amazing. It's shocking to me because I like, it drives me crazy, the difference between the two. But for her, she'd much rather just play on fidelity at 30. She's totally fine with it. Doesn't care at all. Whereas for me, I'm more of the player that's going to go through on 60 with sacrifices to fidelity. So having the option and the choice there is great. But my stance on this from day one of the potential over 30 FPS has just been that it's not disqualifying for a game to be amazing if it runs at 30 in 2023. Would it be better if it runs at 60 or has the support for 60? Yeah. It would also be ideal or better, quote unquote, if it also had 8K support, if it ran at 120, if it ran at 240, that would all be great. It's not required. A game can be amazing and run at 30. A game can be amazing and run at 720p. We've seen that before. Some of the greatest games of all time launched at low resolutions by modern standards and low frame rates by modern standards. Again, it's not ideal, but Starfield could still be amazing running at 30 FPS. And it could even be amazing with some bugs and glitches and stuff. Look back at Fallout New Vegas as an example of a great game that still is pretty broken. But whenever you introduce technical issues or poor frame rates and performance and all of that, you have to greatly outweigh that with amazing gameplay, narratives, whatever else you're doing to balance that out. Otherwise, it's just not going to hold up.
I get on Bethesda's side where they say, we want to give you a game that runs smooth all the time, that looks the best in the best way for a console in their opinion. Some people say, well, I like 60 FPS for console because I've got used to it and PlayStation does it and Xbox also has games where you can do performance and fidelity mode. But then Bethesda says, we want you to experience the game fully and not take away any of the things that make the game great in their eyes. So I understand both of the sides here. And in my opinion, what I would say is, I play on PC, and personally a lot of people do spend a lot of money on PCs, especially with the specs that they're asking for. It's not anything cheap. It is very pricey. You will be spending roughly around about $1,000 to around $1,500 on a computer that can run this game smoothly at all resolutions. So to take into account, you got to spend all the money on the computer, and then on top of that you also have to spend, you know, money on the game. And then when you buy the game, it's like, okay, cool, but you remember you got to buy the monitor and things of that nature. So when it comes to PC, it is very expensive, and it's a reason why, because I
mean, the central debate for this is over console, and apparently this game, according to people way smarter than me, is almost certainly going to be CPU limited. And that's just, I mean, that's just an artifact of the types of games that Bethesda makes. They have a lot of simulations going on, and the thing with these games that you have to remember is when you have a lot of simulation stuff happening, that has to be calculated on a frame by frame basis. And so it's not as easy as just like, oh, well, we have the frame that we're rendering, and then when we have some extra time, we'll render these simulation things. That's pretty uncommon. Maybe eventually in like a year or two, we'll start to see some games that use the cloud more, where the cloud handles all of the simulation, NPC simulation, all of that stuff. But that has its own suite of issues, because then you're going to have a single player game that requires online connectivity and decent online connectivity to simulate that stuff off device. So it's probably just not worth it. But this is really common for games like this to be CPU bound. And it's just, again, like for Bethesda, as far as I understand it, getting this thing running at 60 on console probably would not have been as simple as just turning off God rays, turning off fog effects, lowering resolution, whatever. It probably would have included lowering simulation density, lowering like, you know how in Monster Hunter there's the thing where like past a certain distance of like 30 meters or something, all of the animations for all of the monsters in the distance are at half frame rate. So if you're playing at 30 on like a base PS4, it drops to 15 frames a second for the monsters flapping their wings and flying in the distance. That's the kind of things that they'd have to start doing to maintain the higher frame rate option. And I can understand why they just didn't feel like that was necessary. You know, I totally understand that. So, yeah.
I want to play the game at the highest graphics, the best resolution. To me, the best resolution is 4K, but the best gameplay to performance to efficiency system more so for me is 1440p. I love 14.
Totes agree. I mean, honestly, 4K, like, it's nice, but I kind of miss my 1440p 27-inch like little curved. I think it was a Samsung G7 or G8. I don't remember what it was exactly, but that thing, 240 hertz, 1440p. Oh baby, that thing was sexy. It's upstairs. It's Nikki's gaming PC monitor now, but the 4K stuff is nice, but sometimes I feel like 1440p just makes more sense.
1440p gaming. I've been 1440p gaming for a while now. I have had a PS5 before. I gave it to my brother, and when I play the PS5, I do see a lot of online games do cap themselves at 30. A lot of the games cap themselves at 30, and a lot of people might not understand that. So it's very interesting to see that a lot of people that do have criticism are playing games that are online that are locked at 30 FPS. But it's just one of those things where it's very interesting. I just hope that people enjoy the game for the game and not try to criticize the game too early. I hope it launches.
And I totally agree. I think the main reason people are worried about the 30 FPS thing is because this is a shooter and it also has first person gameplay. And that would probably be where most people play games like this, is in first person. And frankly, 30 FPS in first person is not great. It just isn't. And it also causes a lot of motion sickness for some people. I'm one of those people. If I try to play a first person shooter at 30, it gets me motion sick. I just can't do it. My brain doesn't like it. 60 helps, but to really avoid it, I need to go even higher frame rates. So, yeah, but I mean, of course, I agree. Don't judge the game too early. 40 hertz is the minimum for OLED. Yeah. I don't know which monitor in particular you're referencing, but Christian, thank you for the 6-month membership re-upping, by the way. Do you think AMD is intentionally going to keep DLSS out of this game? There's still been no official word from Todd. My understanding is that it's all but confirmed, like, that they already signed a deal with AMD to do FSR whatever support and not allow DLSS. I thought that was already confirmed. Maybe I missed something or misread it. But my understanding was that, yeah, there is no DLSS. Maybe I'm mistaken, but my understanding is that's already like a done deal. They signed it just like back in the day when those Batman Arkham games were coming out, and they all pretty much were built for NVIDIA. So all of the coolest like simulated physics and all of that, the smoke effects, everything, all of that required you to have NVIDIA graphics cards. It's just the same thing here, but they're partnering with AMD. I don't know why they'd go with AMD, because FSR2 is like laughably worse, way worse than DLSS 3 with frame generation and stuff. But I don't know. It might also, I mean, just to be completely clear, it might also just be something that they're doing for the Xbox port of the game. And then on PC, you know, they just copied it over. I don't know, because of course the Xbox doesn't use NVIDIA hardware, so they can't really port that over. So I don't know. I watched some dude called Linus. He does tech tips. He said AMD was doing exclusive stuff, but being cagey, and NVIDIA is very direct about working with everybody. Yeah, I don't know. There's some stank there. And as we saw with the frame rate discussion, if Bethesda doesn't come out and just address it up front, I would guess the news is probably bad. So at this point, I would assume that, yeah, it won't support DLSS, which in my opinion sucks, because DLSS is way better than AMD FSR2, but what are you going to do?
It's just bug free. I hope the game runs very, very smooth. I hope the game is very fun and very interesting, and overall on both console and PC runs smooth. If all they're giving us is a game that looks great and runs smooth, then that's all we need. We don't need to add the extra things, but I do understand the 60 FPS situation, because who doesn't want to play games at 60? But if the game feels good on the controller at 30 and it looks amazing, then what's the problem here? Take the game for what it is and just enjoy the experience. I get the frustration, I honestly do understand, but if the game runs smooth in your hand and looks very good, there really shouldn't be a problem, because a lot of the games that you guys have played that you had the most fun with have released at 30 FPS. So just try to enjoy the game for what it is. Just have fun. Now the next issue.
Oh, shout out Rocky. Thank you for the member. Thank you, Rocky. I'll get you your AC Mirage copy. Don't you worry. And yeah, no, I totally agree. There is plenty of games that we can point to that run fine, that are at 30 FPS, that are actually phenomenal. Like even Tears of the Kingdom that launched this year runs at a really piss poor resolution and 30, sometimes dropping below that, and it's still a phenomenal game.
That I have a very
Did I get nauseous playing Zelda? No, because it's third person. But if I try to play a first person game at 30, oh baby, I get sick. I get mad sick. It's just not good. Like trying to play Doom at 30. Oh God. Don't do that. Don't do that.
04 Alphatron super chatted $9.99. I just don't get how some people hate on Star Citizen but speak on Starfield like it's the games to end all games. SC is a space simulator MMO. Starfield single player RPG, two different genres.
Totally agree. Two different genres, and they're trying to do two very different things. Yeah, I don't think that they're directly comparable as individual games, but you can compare features. And that's why I've been saying, like, Star Citizen as an MMO has support for all of these features that Starfield can't get working seemingly in a single player game. And that's why I think it's worth bringing up, is it's like, guys, they got this working in a multiplayer game. You should be able to get this working in a single player game.
Now the next issue that I have a very, very, very strong opinion on is
very, very, very strong opinion on. Okay. Somebody came into chat and was like, hey, I saw this creator that made a video describing how land vehicles not being present in this game is not a big deal. And for anybody not aware at this point, Starfield will not have rovers. It will not have speed bikes. You cannot fly your ship in the atmosphere. If you want to, I can demonstrate this way. So if this is a planet we're exploring in Starfield, let's say I decide, I want to land on Madagascar. So I click down here, and this is my landing pad, right? Okay, so down here is where I'm going. We zoom all the way in, and it generates a landing pad, say here, and then I land and I'm good. Do they actually have these streets? No, they don't. Maybe if I go over here into like a city, they'll have the streets. So let's say I land right here on this. Is it on a boat? Yeah, they actually scanned it on a boat. Dude, what? I didn't know Google Earth did this. They actually got on a boat and scanned it for street view, but it's water view. Okay. No, I had no idea this was a thing they did, but shout out. People in Madagascar scanning. Anyway, so let's say I land here and I look off in the distance and I'm playing Starfield and I'm like, ooh, baby. So there's not much around me. Maybe they generated some stuff. You can see there's like, I don't know if that's a resort or what. Like they've got some stuff over here and I go, okay, I can run over there and explore that. Take me a little bit to run over there and explore that. There's some more stuff and buildings over here. Maybe there's a couple of places to mine some materials over here. All pretty close, but I can run off and I can do that. But in Starfield, if I wanted to go, say, over there to that mountain, I can't just hop in my ship and fly over there real quick. What you have to do is you have to pull up a separate menu, and then you have to go back to the world view, literal world view, just like this. And then I'd have to try and reselect a landing zone, like over here, to land over here and get closer to, yeah, like none of this is tracked. So I'd have to go over here and then land over here, trying to get closer to that mountain, hoping that it works. This is a little scary. Like, this is a very dark, scary forest. It's just, okay, well, oh, it's just a guy. Okay. Anyway, so then from here, I'd have to go over and I'd have to start exploring again, trying to get to that mountain. So it's incredibly difficult to actually get to where you want to go, when in a game like Star Citizen, which we'll see here in a little bit when we boot in, I can just hop in my ship, fly a kilometer over, and it's no problem.
Starfield is a game of exploration. It's more so of a game where you could do everything that you want, but in order to do everything that you want, you have to use the resources around you. You have to be immersed in the game. You have to live inside of this world in order to gain something from it. And it's
Totally agree, which is why it's weird you can't use your spaceship as you want. It's just weird. It's a spaceship that can fly, and you can't fly it in a planet's atmosphere, at least the way you want to. It can land, it can fly, the game can fly it for you, but like, it's just weird.
the same as Skyrim and Fallout 4. Fallout 4 has no land vehicles whatsoever. And people are like, okay, it's supposed to be post-apocalyptic. It's not supposed to have any type of vehicles or whatever the case may be. It's supposed to feel
Hold on.
the same as Skyrim and Fallout 4. Fallout 4 has no land vehicles whatsoever. And people are like, okay, it's supposed to be post-apocalyptic. It's not supposed to have any type of vehicles or whatever the case may be. It's
Except for vertebrates, which everybody else is allowed to use except you. So, yeah. I mean, again, Fallout 4, remember we were talking earlier in the stream about a thing and then the excuse for the thing. The excuse can make sense. It doesn't change whether or not the thing it's excusing or attempting to excuse it is a good thing, you know? So for Fallout 4, no vehicles, yeah, that you can fly. Other characters in the game can fly and can do stuff, but in Fallout 4, you, the player, can't. And they say that's because it's post-apocalyptic, because it's not what they want. They want you to go explore on foot, blah, blah, blah. Whatever excuse there is, might be valid, might not be, but it doesn't change the fact that there's this problem where there's no ability to fly while other characters in the game can, you know? So it's a different consideration.
Disco Cobra 2013 super chatted $10.
Thank you, my friend.
Does that make a game like No Man's Sky considerably more impactful? Maybe the game launched in a poor state, but now you have a fully fleshed out game with full planets to explore. Starfield might not.
Yeah, if I were No Man's Sky's team, I would be telling them to like prep a mad marketing budget for right around a week after Starfield launches, because all of these things that I think players are going to hop into Starfield expecting, and then they get disappointed when it doesn't work quite the way they were hoping. I think Starfield or No Man's Sky already does a lot of that. It's wild what you can do in No Man's Sky. I think they need a revamped tutorial sequence. I think they need to rebuild the opening like 3-4 hours of the game, because they're painfully slow and do a really bad job of showing what that game can do. But No Man's Sky is wild how much stuff is there and how much they've supported stuff. It's true, at launch you couldn't find other players, that wasn't in the game, but the game has changed a lot since that Krabby Cat video was made. I'll tell you what, if you're not familiar with some of the stuff they're doing now, just go look up some of the No Man's Sky updates. It's crazy what they have now. It's wild. Anyway, but let's hear what his justification is going to be for this. I think where he's going to go is that it's not a big deal that there's no rovers and things on the planet for you to explore, and it's not a big deal you can't fly your ship in the planet's atmosphere, because Bethesda wants you to explore on foot. That's how they can cater the experience specifically to you. So it's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. That's where I think he's going.
supposed to feel like you're lost in this post-apocalyptic world, which is understandable. But at the same time, if you have these very, very, very complex guns, then what is the delaying factor when it comes to the vehicles? You can say architecture. Well, that makes sense. But here's the interesting thing about Starfield. You have to live in the game. Like I said, you have to be inside the game, and you can't.
Oh, what was his little pop-up text?
That makes sense. But here's the
You can say the same about Starfield. Yeah, like they have spaceships. Why can they not build rovers?
interesting thing about Starfield. You have to live in the game. Like I said, you have to be inside the game, and you can't just brush past everything. Now, if you had a land vehicle right now and you had the game in your hands and you need iron, you're going to speed your way around the whole planet until you find your iron, speed back to your ship, and just go. That's it. You're just going to speed past it. If you had space flight inside of the planet, which they said they don't have, you would just fly across everything, get what you wanted, and then leave. Where is the experience and the fun in that? Where is the immersion inside of that? That is the problem. We have the ability to make living quarters that we can transport with us where we want to go. ago, and it seems like people's last resorting factor when it comes to this game is it doesn't have land vehicles, it sucks. That is not the correct way to judge a game. I mean, I understand, but at the same time, it just seems like if you want to immerse yourself in space, you have to have the sense of scarcity. I have this ship that I can take with me wherever I want, but I have to go to these very intense planets to get the things that I need. So I have to be careful. I have to know my surroundings. I have to make sure that my suit fits the environment. Why do we also have to have a car? I know I get it. It would be cool, but
I mean, I get maybe where our terms are confused because to me, immersion is like being in a state where you are able to get lost in this universe, this world, and where the world makes sense and is consistent. The rules of the game make sense and are consistent. So you're able to get lost in the world. It's not constantly pulling you out with stuff that doesn't work. You know, that's why no load screens are awesome, because it just lets you get lost. You never have to stop. You know, it just is constantly shifting and flowing through gameplay. However, what he's saying is like to be in a vehicle where you can race to a mining, I guess, spot is going to be harming to immersion. I just don't see it. I mean, there are countless other games with space exploration as their driving gameplay mechanic, like No Man's Sky, like Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, whatever you want to point at. And I'm pretty sure all of those, Elite Dangerous, you're in a ship, but you know, it's a separate thing. But like No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, these games have had rovers and land vehicles and the ability to free fly your planets in the atmosphere, certainly, for ages and ages and ages. Pretty much since launch. I think No Man's Sky had it at launch. It certainly did, flying ships at launch. I don't know if they had rovers or anything at launch. I don't think they did. But No Man's or Star Citizen certainly has had it for years and years and years. And those people, I mean, Star Citizen gamers, I'll tell you what, if you want to know what it's like to be immersed in a video game, I'll tell you what. Go talk to some people who are hardcore into Star Citizen. It's crazy the level of immersion some of those people get into. So I don't think it harms immersion to have a rover. I think it actually harms immersion more to be like, I'm flying in a spaceship, I land it through a cutscene, and I want to go over there, but I can't fly my freaking spaceship. And despite us having the technology to build spaceships, I can't have a rover to just hop in and drive over there, so I don't have to go hopping or boosting with a jetpack across a desolate landscape. I would find that more disrupting, personally. Feels like space is just a feature in Starfield. Yeah. Well, it's just, I think that this is a big deal because it harms immersion, and he's saying that it helps it. And frankly, if we're at the point where you're saying X actually helps immersion, not being able to use rovers or fly your ship freely how you want to, if you're saying that helps your immersion, but I'm saying it harms it, we just have a fundamental disagreement. I just don't think we're ever going to agree. And I could be like, oh, well, you're just so hyped for the game that you don't care. I could excuse your concerns or your lack of concern that way. But then I'm just like telling you what you're thinking, and I don't want to do that. I just think we disagree. Like, if you truly, honestly, and it's not just the copium speaking, if you truly, honestly think that this helps your immersion, we just aren't going to agree. We just disagree. So his version of immersion is knowing that he's in a game and that there is an indefinite reason for why a machine is present. Like if Amnesia wasn't always dark, it wouldn't make you feel uneasy. Or a mechanic, yeah. It's, let's see. Grady says, it's clear Starfield is built around players on foot encountering creatures and enemies with no easy escape button. If you had a car or a bike or whatever, you're skipping the most fun part of the game. Well, so it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Which came first? Did they decide not to have vehicles first and then build the gameplay around it? Or did they build the gameplay and then after they built the gameplay decide not to have vehicles and stuff? I think it's frankly silly to say that you couldn't have meaningful encounters on the planet's surface with vehicles. I could point to literally any single open world adventure game that has vehicles that's decent. Like whether you look at something like GTA 5 or even Red Dead with horses. Those are technically vehicles, okay? They are vehicles that move a player. It's a movement vehicle, okay? And even those, I would say you are riding along in Red Dead, traveling faster than you would on foot. You're going along, having a great time, and then you see something interesting. What do? You pull off and you stop. You could say, yeah, well, when you get into a dangerous encounter, then you hop back on the horse and you can leave. It's true, you can do that. But when you do that, you don't get the reward of finishing that encampment and getting whatever rewards that they might have on their bodies or in loot or whatever. So to me, it seems much more likely that Bethesda realized pretty early on they did not have the tech. And this is what I've heard from countless people who work in the creation engine. I'm not a coder, I'm not a mod developer, I'm not anybody like that. But I've spoken to plenty of people who are working on huge mods within the creation engine and creation engine 2. It's the same thing. It's just updated, so it's the same thing. Everybody I've spoken to who knows what they're talking about and is way smarter than me has said the creation engine just simply is not built and is not capable of streaming data that quickly, of bringing in new data and dumping the old data that fast. It just can't do it. So they just have decided it's not worth having those vehicles that will try to do that because it would cause them to sacrifice countless other things to try and get that working. And so they just decide to move on and they focus on other things. And whether or not those things counterbalance and make up for the lack of vehicles, lack of free use of your spaceship, I don't know. Maybe the rest of the game is so amazing it doesn't matter that there's no vehicles. Or maybe the rest of the game is kind of okay, and the fact that there's no vehicles is just a nail in the coffin. It's just like, oh my God, this like constantly is driving me crazy, you know? Oh no, absolutely. The creation engine is a scrap machine. I just think they've mastered that kind of gameplay loop, and a vehicle wouldn't easily square into that circle hole. Well, and Grady, I think that that's an interesting point. It's like, yeah, Bethesda is really good at crafting experiences on foot. And I think that this is a very valid question to say, well, maybe they decided vehicles were not worth it on the planet's surface because then you'll travel too fast past all of this stuff. And then they can't adequately simulate or procedurally generate points of interest because you'd be traveling too fast. You'd be able to just fly literally straight over things that they wanted you to explore. And that could totally be fair. Okay. I think that that's totally legitimate. I would say other games still, once again, have given you very fast vehicles and players still find or manage to find points of interest to explore. See you, Lucas. Much love. Thanks for coming by. So I would say that that's not a disqualifying thing. Like, I just don't think that you can't, like, oh, you have vehicles, so you can't have meaningful exploration anymore. I just don't buy that. I just frankly don't buy that. But it is true that what it seems to be is that Bethesda realized they weren't going to have vehicles. They weren't going to allow you to fly your ship in the atmosphere. And then after that, they said, okay, well, now that we've settled on that, players are going to walk around on foot. And knowing that once you land, we can then procedurally generate in place at specified distances different things, for you to find and explore and navigate. And if that's what they chose to do, again, maybe it works out really, really well. But I think it's just clear to me that this is not going to be like No Man's Sky. It's not going to be like Star Citizen. I would personally put a pretty good chunk of change if I were a betting man. I'd put a Benjamin or two on black saying that I don't think you're going to be able to travel from one end of the planet to the other all the way around. I don't think that if you get on like an ice ball with nothing on it, I don't think you're going to be able to circumnavigate the planet. I'm guessing what they're doing is that it's a sphere. You select a point on the sphere to fast travel to, and then the game simulates and procedurally generates a vast expanse in front of you to explore. And then when you're done, you fast travel away and that goes away. That's cleared out. Kind of dumped. It would not surprise me if you couldn't go back. So I think it's probably just going to be a big flat expanse like this desk. And you can travel. And then when you leave, that goes away. And if you set the classic thing with a rubber band on your controller, you pull it forward so you can get up and go make a hot pocket or something while the game keeps running, generating XP or whatever for you. I would guess if you did that and then you also went on the PC console commands and you set this running speed at 10,000 units a second or whatever it is, and you just blast across, I would guess you never reach back to where you started. I don't think they're going to be spherical, I would guess. And again, I would put some money on it because everything they've said has been so cagey that I'm guessing that's what it is.
He took my thing. Red flag.